Yes, you want more. Yes, you want more. Yes, you want. Yes, yes, the sound capture sound. Yes, you want.
ऐश्वर्यस्य विभूषणं सुजनता शौर्यस्य वाक्संयमो ज्ञानस्योपशमः श्रुतस्य विनयो वित्तस्य पात्रे व्ययः अक्रोधस्तपसक्षमा प्रभवितो धर्मस्य निर्व्याजता सर्वेषामपि सर्वकारणमिदं शीलं परं भूषणम् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How are you all? So today we are running day 3, session 3 of CA Foundation Law Marathon. Yesterday, in 2 different sessions, we had covered various provisions of Contract Act. We had covered around 18 different topics under Contract Act, comprising of around 25, 26 sections. So, which covered substantial part of your Contract Act. And in today's session, the last parts of Contract Act. Of course, there are few areas to discuss here. 2 different units are there. One is breach of contract and its remedies. And there is one more area, that is your quasi-contract and contingent contract. So purely from examination perspective, let us try to analyze what are the important factors to be kept in mind. So before we go to section 73, probably we'll have to emphasize sections 39. Section 39 comes first, then section 73. Let section 73 be here. I'll go for section 39 first. Section 39. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Section 39 of the Contract Act specifically deals with breach of contract. Though we don't say it as breach of contract, that is the actual section for breach of contract. So 39, what does it say? Effect of refusal by a party to perform whole of the obligation, right? Effect of refusal by a party to perform whole of the obligation. This is what we have been seeing. So this is nothing but when one party to the contract does not perform as per the promise, what will be the effect? What will be the effect? There it says the other party has an option to put an end to the contract. Where one party refuses to perform whole of the obligation, the other party has a right to put an end to the contract. This is what we know under section 39. Plus, there is one more thing which says, however, if he allows the continuation of performance, either by his conduct, where he shows his acquiescence in continuation, then such party later on cannot put an end to the contract based on such grounds. That is what section 39 says. So wherever it is a breach of contract, you should remember section 39. Section 39 is the base section for breach of contract. Now, under breach of contract, we have 2 categories of breach of contract. We have 2 types of breach of contract. One is actual breach. One is anticipatory breach. One is actual breach. One is anticipatory breach. Now, what and all thing happens in actual breach and anticipatory breach? Actual breach, when it will happen? Good morning. Good morning. Actual breach, when will it happen? When it will happen? Either on due date of performance either on due date of performance or at the time of performance. Either on due date of performance or at the time of performance, breach can happen. That is actual breach. When the performance is happening, if there is a breach of contract, I'll consider it as actual breach. Next is anticipatory breach. Anticipatory breach before the due date. Either by express words or by conduct. Where a party to the contract denies to perform. Either by his conduct, he shows his disinterest in performance, or by words, he expresses that is not going to perform. In both the cases, we'll consider it as anticipatory breach of contract. So the moment contract is breached, we should go for the remedies. Remedies of the contract. We should go for the remedies. What are the remedies possible? So remedies for breach of contract, we have various remedies. The very important one is suit for damages. Second one is rescission of the contract. Third one, specific performance. Fourth one, quantum merit. And last one is injunction. These are the remedies available wherever there is a breach of contract. The suit for damages is totally related in section 73. Section 73 gives you an option to sue for damages whenever there is a breach of contract. Damages is nothing but monetary loss suffered by the party. Now, section 73, what are the things you have to observe? Section 73. Point number 1. Actual monetary loss. Actual monetary loss, whatever is suffered, getting compensated, the actual monetary loss is called as damages. So this is important. Second important thing is actual monetary loss means that arises in the normal circumstances, normal course. If any special circumstance exists, it must be conveyed at the beginning. Only then special damages can be claimed. Special damages can be claimed. Can we recall the case law here? Important case law. Which case law is there? Crankshaft. Do you remember the case law? The case law here to be taken is Hadley versus Baxendale. Correct? The case law here is Hadley versus Baxendale. An important case law. Important because normally they ask you certain questions based on similar facts of, even though you don't remember the section, even though you don't remember the names of the case, you should understand the facts there. Very simple facts. Crankshaft of a mill gets broken down and Baxendale is being authorized to get it repaired. So Baxendale says he'll take it to the other place, that is to the place of repair within 2 days, but he delays it, because of which the ultimate repair gets delayed by 7 days. So Hadley is asking Baxendale to pay him the profit for 7 days. 7 days I have suffered loss, so you have to give me the profit. My factory was shut down. So Baxendale denies to pay. So now what happens? Hadley files a case against Baxendale. In court also there is an important observation. Court says shutting down a factory for the purpose of repair of your crankshaft is not something that happens in the natural course of business, normal course of business. So it will not be considered as ordinary damages. It will be considered as special damages. So where the party has an intention to recover special damages, he should have conveyed the special condition to the other person even before the contract is entered or at the time when the contract was entered. So this is what happens in case of Hadley versus Baxendale. Important case law. That is section 73. Of course, there are different types of damages, but section 73 tells these are the two things. Coming to section 74. Section 74 speaks about prefixed damages. Now, what is important in this part, sir? Prefixed damages. Even though in Indian context, we don't have the concept of liquidated damages and penalty, you should have the knowledge about the difference, because there can be an easy question asking you to differentiate between liquidated damages and penalty. Liquidated damages and penalty. So if the prefixed damage, prefixed amount is genuine estimate, pre-estimate of possible loss, if it is genuine pre-estimate of possible loss, we'll consider it as, that will be considered as liquidated damages. Very nice. And where it is not a genuine pre-estimate, rather it is a high amount to compel the other person to perform the obligation, to compel the other person to perform the obligation, it will be called as penalty. So penalty, in penalty, what you do is you compel the other person to perform what he has promised. It is called as penalty. Such a thing is called as penalty. So two important observations to be made: liquidated damages and penalty. Differences are important, differences. But in Indian context, what will happen? You should remember this also. There can be a question saying that the prefixed damages as per the contract, prefixed damages was, say, 2 lakh rupees. Case 1, actual loss was rupees 1,80,000. Actual loss is 1,80,000. Now, what will court award as damages? In a suit for damages, what will court award as damages? The answer should be 1,80,000. So this is the maximum amount. So where there is a suit, court will award 1,80,000. Case 2, actual loss was rupees 2,50,000. Actual loss was 2,50,000. So what will be the amount of compensation the person will be receiving as damages? In this case, it is subject to maximum amount, that is 2 lakh. So here, only 2 lakh will be awarded as damages. Only 2 lakh will be given as damages. So these are the things to be kept in mind with respect to section 74 prefixed damages. Section 74 prefixed damages. I hope it is very clear to us, everybody. Section 73, section 74. Section 75 says party who is rightfully rescinding the contract has the right to claim damages wherever he has suffered the loss. That is section 75. Yes. Correct. So these are the provisions with respect to damages which are to be kept in mind by the students. So 73, 74, 75. Then few more things you have to remember in this particular unit is you should understand the provisions of quantum merit. We can expect a theory question here. There can be a theory question, quantum merit. So these are the things in unit number 1. Sorry, unit number 5. Unit number 5, very limited things are there to understand. These are the things to be kept in mind. Moving on further. Sorry. Moving on further, we have unit 3. In unit 3, we have discussed about other essential elements. Unit 3, we completed with section 30. Correct. After that, when we came for unit number 4, it started with section 37. So between 30 and 37, there should be some sections too. So we have sections between 31 to 36, which tells us about contingent contract. 31 tells us about definition of contingent contract. What do you mean by contingent contract? Where performance of contract, to do or not to do a contract, is dependent on happening or not happening of an uncertain future event. Such a contract is called as contingent contract. Insurance, we say, or maybe sometimes we say that promise to pay or promise to sell goods when ship arrives at the port. Such things are called as contingent contract. We consider them as contingent contract. It is dependent. There will be an uncertain event, and based on that uncertain event, the particular performance of the contract is dependent. That is what is called as contingent. Now 32, 33, 34, 35 and 36 speaks about various scenario about rules of enforcement. So 36, 37, 38, 39, sorry, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35 and 36. 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. 32 dependent on happening of an event. 33 dependent on not happening of an event. 34 conduct of living person. Conduct of living person. 35 happening or not happening. within fixed time. And last one, 36. Impossible event. This is the overall summary of contingent contract, rules of enforcement. If the contingent contract is dependent upon happening of an event, if the event happens, the contingent contract is enforceable. If the event does not happen, contingent contract becomes void. If contingent contract depends upon not happening of an event, if the event does not happen, contingent contract will be enforceable. If the event happens, then contingent contract will be void. Where contingent contract is dependent upon conduct of a person, living person. When the living person makes it impossible, or contingent, when the behavior of the living person is such that that particular event upon which the contingent contract is dependent, he makes it either impossible or he makes it contingent. That event itself is made contingent. In both the cases, the contingent contract becomes void. Happening or not happening within fixed time. If the event happens or if the event does not happen within the fixed time, then the contingent contract becomes void. Any contingent contract dependent upon impossible event is void ab initio. So these are the things to be kept in mind between section 32 to 36. They have not frequently tested this. One or two scenarios, they had asked 1 to 2 marks question by asking you to give the reasons. That doesn't mean we can completely ignore this. At least basic understanding of these provisions are mandatory here. So please make sure that you have understood this. Then comes quasi-contract, one more cluster of sections between 68 to 72. If you remember, we stopped at 61 yesterday. Today I started with 73. In between, there should be some sections. So, '62, '63 already, 62, '63 we had done yesterday. That novation and other things. 64, 65, 66 and 67. 64 actually comes under coercion. 64, restoration of benefit. 65 under void contract. Same thing what comes in 64 under void contract. 65. Then 66 and 67. One is communication of revocation or rescission. How to communicate the rescission of the contract. So next, what cluster we have to see is 68 to 72, which speaks about quasi-contract. This speaks about quasi-contract. Under quasi-contract, you see, there are a few important sections, very important because there can be easy case-based questions here. You should be very careful. 67, 68, 69, 68, 69, 70, 71 and 72, we have 5 different sections. There can be possible questions in section 68. Section 68 is already discussed, correct? Can you recall section 68? We had discussed yesterday. Section 68. Can you recall what is section 68? Section 68 is necessaries supplied to person incompetent to contract. Loss is, it can be recovered out of the property of such person. It can be recovered out of property of such person. That is 68. Not just minor. Any person who is not eligible to contract. 68 is important. 69 is also important. Payment by interested party. A party who is interested in a particular transaction makes the payment, where he does not have the liability to pay, still makes the payment because he is interested. The party who had to rightfully pay the amount, from him the amount can be recovered. That is section 69. Important. One more thing that is very important is 71. Section 71. What is 71? Obligation of or responsibility of finder of lost goods. Finder of lost goods. Whatever the obligations are there for a finder of lost goods. That is section 71. Under section 71, what and all questions can we expect? What type of questions can be expected? First variant of question is finder of lost goods finds a goods. He keeps it at place, and wherever it is kept, the goods is damaged. Can finder of lost goods be held liable by the true owner of the goods? This is one possible question there. So there you have to understand that finder of lost goods must take reasonable care of the goods, where because of his negligence, if any loss happens or if any damage happens to the clothes or if any damage happens to the goods, then finder of lost goods will be liable to the true owner because it is his duty to take reasonable care. Second possible question will be based on the case law. Which case law, sir? Hollins versus Howler. Hollins versus Howler is also important here. Hollins versus Howler. The finder of lost goods finds a diamond ring and then he gives it to the cafe guy, that is owner of the restaurant. Later on, when he claims back the diamond ring, it is denied. So is he right in denying? Court says, important observation here. What is the important observation? Finder of lost goods can have right in the goods against the entire world except the true owner. Other than true owner, he can enjoy the rights against any person. Correct? He can enjoy the rights against any person. That is an important observation when it comes to Hollins versus Howler. So these are the three important sections which must be observed when it comes to quasi-contract. 72, of course, comes in your coercion part. So with this, we complete the provisions, important provisions of Indian Contract Act. Whatever the important provisions of Indian Contract Act are there, that gets completed here. Correct? So, yesterday we had discussed 18 topics. 39 is the 19th one. 73 is the 20th one. 74 is 21st one. 22nd, 23, 24 and 25. 25 different areas are discussed. We can expect around 30 to 35% of the questions. That means you have to multiply it with 60 because 60 mark area. From Contract Act, majority of the things will come from Contract Act. And these 25 areas should help you out in cracking out the questions that will be asked in your examination. So please pay attention to all these 25 areas. Look into it, that whether you have been clearly understanding them or not, if you can recall them properly or not, all those things become very, very important. So this entire discussion of 25 different topics that we have covered are important. They are predominantly important for understanding the provisions, also for answering the questions. Purely from the examination perspective, we have covered it. So this becomes an important part of the discussion. Important part of the discussion. So is it clear? So shall we end our contract act discussion here? So it's almost 4 good hours where we have spent on contract act. Yesterday morning, 1.5 hour session. Yesterday almost 1 hour 45 minutes. So, and today half an hour. So almost 3 hours 45 minutes odd time we have spent on this particular provision. I think so that should be sufficient with respect to contract act. Shall we go ahead and discuss the other things? Shall we go for Sale of Goods Act and cover important provisions of Sale of Goods Act? Next important chapter to recall, revise is Sale of Goods Act. Shall we? Sale of Goods Act comprises of how many units? 4 different units are there. Hello, sir. Can we get a positive response in the chat box? Hello, my dears. Can I get a response in the chat box? Yes, we are getting the responses. Mahidara has responded. Who else is going to respond? No one is there. Hello. Hello, my dears. You people slept over. Early morning revision session. You people slept over. No response. So Omkar has replied. Lucifer has replied. Come on, my dears. Please do respond so that let me understand. Let me see who are there in the class at least. Omkar is there. Mahidara is there. Lucifer is there. Rifa is there. Nice. Who else? Who else is there? Okay. I'll go for Anil is there. This Anil guy has become a little bit slow, I guess. Yesterday full of responses. Today, little his face is bit less. Probably he slept late. He was reading. Today, he's yet to come to that particular mode, I guess. Niha is there. Nice. So here we are. Sale of Goods Act. Rajeshwari. Sale of Goods Act. What are we going to do in Sale of Goods Act? I can't make out, sir. Students are busy. Students are busy preparing for the examination. Right. High time. Everybody is busy with their preparations and we are adding up for your preparation system. Correct? So here we are with Sale of Goods Act. I have marked certain important sections again, which will help you out to crack out the provisions or questions on Sale of Goods Act. So what will happen in Sale of Goods Act? Sale of Goods Act deals with one particular thing, that is selling of goods. Section 4. Section 4 of Sale of Goods Act gives us the provision relating to contract of sale. Section 4 has 4 different parts. Each of them are important. So first one, what does it say? It is a contract whereby seller transfers or agrees to transfer property in the goods to buyer for price. This is the main core definition from where all that contract part arises. It starts from here. It says it is a contract whereby seller transfers or agrees to transfer property in the goods to buyer for price. Second point, it says it can be conditional or absolute. Absolute or conditional. Third point, it speaks about sale and agreement to sell. If the ownership property in the goods is to be transferred immediately, it is called as sale. Whereas if it is to be transferred either on future date or on fulfillment of condition, it will be considered as agreement to sell and not sale. And last one, when will agreement to sell become sale? Either on expiry of the time or fulfillment of condition. Either on expiry or lapse of time or fulfillment of condition. Agreement to sale becomes sale. Agreement to sale becomes sale. Agreement to sell becomes sale. So these are the 4 important points to be kept in mind. Theoretically, what is important here is difference between sale and agreement to sell. This is also to be remembered. This is important. Okay. Next, what happens? After this particular area, we have definition of goods because we are discussing that it is a contract whereby property in the goods is getting transferred. So what do you mean by goods? Definition is given in the section 2 clause 7. Section 2 clause 7 gives the definition of goods. It says every kind of movable property other than money or actionable claims, but includes shares and stocks, standing trees, growing crops, etc., which form part of land. Which are agreed to be severed before sale or under contract of sale. Definition of goods, very important. This is the technical definition of goods. In goods, we have to see the categorization. When you are entering into the contract, if the goods are in existence, we consider it as existing goods. After the contract is entered, if the goods are to be manufactured, it is called as future goods. The acquisition by seller himself is not sure, it is uncertain. Such a goods are called as contingent goods. Under existing goods, we have further classification. Under existing goods, specific goods, ascertained goods, unascertained goods. Specific goods means goods are identified first, and upon that agreement is made for purchasing or selling. You identify the goods first, and then upon that the contract is made. That is called as specific goods. After the contract is made for the purpose of fulfilling the requirements of the contract, if the goods are separated out of the big lot, it is called as ascertained goods. That big lot, which is unascertained, from that you are ascertaining the goods. So these are the things important, because later on when the transfer of ownership comes into picture, all these things will matter a lot. Especially between section 19, 20, 21, 22 and 23. When you speak about transfer of ownership, these sections become very, very important. That is why you should recall them properly. Moving on further, we have one more important area where there can be possible question. Difference between sale and hire purchase. Difference between sale and hire purchase. So hire purchase, what are the conditions to be satisfied? If at all a question is asked, what and all things should form part of your answer for hire purchase? There are 4 important conditions for hire purchase. Which are they? In case of hire purchase, let me elaborate hire purchase now. Sale, anyhow, we know it. We have seen the definition. Hire purchase case, what happens? Let us try to understand. First one, possession. Possession is delivered. Possession is delivered. Payment in installments. Payment in installments. Property to transfer on payment of last installment. Property to transfer on payment of last installment. And the last one is very important one. Such purchaser has right to terminate before passing of property. Even before the property is transferred, the person can put an end to the contract. Such person can put an end to the contract by returning the goods. He need not pay the future installments. But in case of contract of sale, it doesn't happen, sir. Contract of sale, once the contract is entered, the persons should perform the contract. It's a contractual obligation that arises in a contract of sale. So predominant difference. These conditions are to be kept in mind. Sometimes they say installment payment. Just because there is installment payment, don't call it as hire purchase. For hire purchase, these 4 conditions should be there. Only when 4 conditions are there, I'll call it as hire purchase. So important. Very, very important to observe. Difference between sale and hire purchase. Both theoretically as well as practically. There can be a practical question also. So important area. Next, moving on further, what is important section is section 9. Section 9 and 10. Section 9 and 10 speaks about ascertainment of price. Contract of sale requires buyer to pay a consideration called as price. And the definition of price is very clear. It states price means money consideration. That means if you give something in kind, it will not become consideration or it will not become price. Suppose partly paid in cash, partly paid in kind. You are purchasing a car. You sell, say, how are you purchasing is, let us say the car's value is 15 lakh rupees. You already have a car which is worth 10 lakh rupees. So what you do, you give this car plus 5 lakh rupees in cash. You give 5 lakh rupees in cash and this 10 lakh rupee worth car for another car of 15 lakh rupees. You are purchasing another car of 15 lakh rupees. Whether the contract is valid contract, sir. Whether the contract is valid. Contract of sale. Can I consider it as valid contract of sale? Whether the consideration paid is valid or full amount should have been paid in cash only. Yes, sir. Hello, class. Yes means whether it is valid contract. Is it valid contract? It is valid contract, correct? It is valid contract. So we have 2 to 3 people answering here. It is valid contract because they are not saying sufficient consideration should be there. They are saying money consideration should be there. They are saying that there should be money consideration. Correct. Yes. So now how to ascertain the price? Important discussion. Section 9 tells us how to ascertain the price. According to section 9, there are 3 possibilities of fixation of price. Which are they? It may be fixed by the contract. It may be fixed by the contract or manner of fixing. Manner of fixing is fixed in contract. Or third one, it is determined by course of dealing between the parties. Course of dealing normally comes when there are multiple transactions between same parties. By course of dealing. This is section 9. Now one under section 2 says manner can be fixed. Now if it is agreed that goods will be sold, agreed, I'm saying agreement to sell. There is an agreement to sell based upon valuation made by third person. Based upon valuation made by third person. Then you have to go for section 10. Agreement to sell at valuation. In this case, if third party fails, if third party fails to evaluate, agreement is void. Agreement is void. Third, if the third party denies to evaluate or third party dies before valuation or third party is not in a position to evaluate, in all these circumstances, what happens is the agreement becomes void. If he is prevented because of fault of any person, party at fault, party at fault will be liable for damages. And last one, if goods are appropriated pay reasonable price. If goods are appropriated, pay reasonable price. Sir, what can be possible question here? Very important observation. Sometimes they ask a question like this. There is a contract of sale. No remuneration is fixed or no consideration is fixed in the contract. No manner of fixing the consideration is also fixed. After the contract is entered, can the buyer or can the seller deny to sell the goods, stating that price is not fixed by the contract? For the reason price is not fixed, can the contract of sale be avoided? This can be a possible question on section 9. Remember that section 9 clearly says, if no price is fixed, based on those three situations, like fixed by the contract, manner of fixing is fixed by fixed in the contract or by course of dealing between the parties. If it is not fixed under in these scenarios, if it is not fixed under any of these scenarios, still the contract is valida voida. Contract is valida voida. Contract can be avoided. Oh, you. What do you think, Ray? Contract can be avoided? Let me repeat the question. Price is not fixed by the contract. Manner of fixing the price is also not fixed by the contract. Contract is entered already. Can the contract be avoided? Stating that no price has been fixed. Contract cannot be avoided. Contract cannot be avoided. Reasonable price needs to be paid. Reasonable price. Contract is valid, as many people are responding here. Contract is valid. Reasonable price has to be paid. That's it. Yes. Right things. Section 9, section 10, whether it is clear. Very important observations where there can be possible questions. Sir, is it clear? I'm waiting for your response. Sir. Hello. Not clear? Clear. Yes, sir. So we'll proceed to the next unit. Unit number 1 of sale of goods side gets over here. See, I have discussed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different topics, which I feel as very essential when it comes to unit 1 of sale of goods act. Moving on further, we have unit number 2. In unit number 2, what are the essential things we have to understand? There can be so many possible questions here. So you should be very careful. First and foremost thing, section 12. Section 12 tells us about two different things. What is that? Conditions and warranties. Condition, warranty. They use the word stipulation. Stipulation simply means requirement. Stipulation means requirement. Stipulation. Shall we? So condition. It is a stipulation essential. It is a stipulation essential to the main purpose. It is a stipulation essential to the main purpose of the contract. Essential. Breach. In case of breach, contract can be, or contract is repudiated. Condition, we are saying. Condition. Very essential. The contract itself is founded on that particular idea. The contract stands on it. Clear? The contract stands on it. That is why it is called as condition. When someone comes and tells he wants a car for a specific purpose, it will be considered as a condition. The contract should stand upon that. Where you are asking for a watch that works perfectly well under the water. The watch working under the water is the condition you are putting. If that condition is not met, you can put an end to the contract. Yes or no, my dears? Yes. That is your condition part. The next thing is warranty. Warranty is collateral. Collateral means secondary. It is a stipulation collateral to main purpose. In case of breach, only damages are possible. Contract cannot be repudiated, only damages are possible. You cannot repudiate the contract, damages can be claimed. These are the things to be kept in mind when it comes to section 12, which gives us the explanation on stipulation. So wordings you have to observe, sir, wordings. You should keep in mind the wordings also. Because if a question comes, you should not be writing some random stuffs here. You should be writing the exact wordings, clear wordings. So wordings matter a lot. Section 12. Moving on further, we have section 13, which tells us when should breach of condition be treated as breach of warranty, or when will breach of condition be treated as breach of warranty. 4 different scenarios we have. 4 different scenarios. So section 13 tells us about 4 different scenarios where breach of condition is to be treated as breach of warranty. 1. When the buyer waives off the performance of the contract. Buyer waives off performance. That means there should have been a performance. There should have been a condition to be fulfilled. But he is saying you need not perform the contract at all. That this contract, they are literally rescinding the contract. They are putting an end to the contract. In that case, breach of condition may be treated as breach of warranty. That means there is no question of repudiating the contract, or buyer elects to treat breach of condition as a breach of warranty, these are voluntary circumstances where buyer elects to treat breach of condition as breach of warranty. Other two scenario where it is compulsory. That means sometimes you might have purchased the goods, but you are not in a position to return them. Though there is a breach of condition, you will be compelled to treat it as breach of warranty. So, non-severability of contract. Non-severability, that means non-separability. You cannot separate the contract. So, non-severability. Or the last one is if it is excused by law. If fulfillment is excused by law. If these things are asked, they'll ask in the theory question. You will be required to write the full-fledged answer for this under section 13. Observe this, important. Section 12, section 13, both are important. There can be a straight away theory question. Straightforward theory question. Right. So this is section 12 and section 13 for us. Now, conditions and warranties. How many types of conditions and warranties can be there? We can have express conditions, express warranties, implied conditions, implied warranties. Express condition, express warranty are those which are expressly stated in the contract. Parties mutually agree for it and thereby it is entered. That is express. Whereas when we speak about implied ones means those which are assumed by law. Those conditions which law says must be in existence. So those warranties which law says must be in existence. So like this, when we categorize them, there are few topics to discuss here. I'll keep my discussions for all the implied conditions and warranties because any of them can be asked in the examination. That is why I don't want to skip any of these areas. All of them are important. So implied conditions are 7 implied conditions. 7 implied conditions in the sense, first one speaks about title. Condition as to title, section 14. Then comes section 15, it speaks about condition as to description. Further, section 15 also speaks about condition as to sample as well as description. Then comes condition as to sale by sample. Then condition as to quality and fitness, condition as to mercantile quality, condition as to wholesomeness. These are the topics. Similarly, when it comes to implied warranties, we have implied warranty as to quiet possession, implied warranty as to free from encumbrance, implied warranty as to trade usage, and implied warranty as to disclosure of dangerous nature of the goods. So let us analyze one by one and we let us see what type of questions can be asked in each of these areas. Important discussion, elaborate discussion. First one is condition as to title. In this case, the law simply assumes that this assumption is on the part of seller. Assumption is that in case of sale, seller has right to sell goods. In case of agreement to sell, seller will have right to sell goods at the time when property is to pass on. So normally stolen goods example they'll ask in the exam. Goods are stolen. I forgot one more thing here. Section 4. I'll just go back to that section 4 and complete it once. Section 4. Sometimes they'll ask that gold bangle example. Gold bangle question. Where a lady goes to a shop. She wants a gold bangle. She picks a bangle. But she wants it in specific color. So she asks the shopkeeper. Shopkeeper says he can do it and give within 2 days. Now law simply says the answers, all the key answers given in the institute simply say that it is based on agreement to sell. So in case of agreement to sell, ownership transfers only on fulfillment of condition. In that particular case, when the condition is fulfilled, since the goods is not in its original form, the buyer need not accept the goods. Buyer need not accept the goods. This can be a possible question. Answer should be based on section 4. Don't go for transfer of ownership and all. Because institute simply says you should answer the question based on section 4. So it is better to stick to section 4 only. That gold bangle example. Yes. Now moving on further to 14A. 14A condition as to title, we simply had said that in case of sale, seller is the person who has the right to sell. In case of agreement to sell, he will acquire the right before selling it. So tomorrow, if it is proved that seller did not have any title, because of which buyer suffered the loss, buyer can repudiate the contract, or buyer can treat the contract as repudiated and claim the compensation from the seller. He can claim the compensation. Compensation in the sense, whatever money he has paid for purchase. For purchasing the goods, whatever price he has paid. If he has not paid anything, he need not pay. If he has already paid, he can recover it from the seller. He can recover it from the seller. That is 14A. Moving on further, we have 15. 15 has two parts. Sale by description, sale by sample. What are the keywords to be remembered? Very important. See here. Description. When it comes to description, sale by description, you should remember. Goods shall correspond with the description. Goods shall correspond goods shall correspond with the description. Whatever the description is given, it should match. Basmati rice, it should be basmati rice. Exhaust fan, it should be exhaust fan. Roof fan, normal fan if he gives, it is not a valid contract. Whatever he is describing, the goods should be of that description only. Goods should match with the description. Similarly, going on further, what we can do is section 15 only improvises the next thing. Description as well as sample. When goods are sold both with description as well as sample, it should be made sure that goods corresponds with the description as well as sample. So second one, goods sold by description as well as sample. It shall correspond with both. If it corresponds with the description but not with the sample, or if it does not correspond with the sample but corresponds with the description, in both the cases, the agreement is void. The agreement can be repudiated by the buyer. Agreement can be repudiated by the buyer. So sometimes the question can say that the sample shown was wrong, but description was correctly given. And goods delivered corresponded the sample. So can the goods be rejected or not? Answer is goods can be rejected because description is different, sample is different. It should match both with the description as well as sample. So that is why this thing has to be observed carefully here. Section 15. Section 15 has two parts. Both the parts you should be very careful. One is only description, one is description as well as sample. Yes. So whether it is clear? Section 15 part. Make sure that you read all the examples in the institute material from this particular unit especially. You should see that you have covered all the examples from institute material. Yes. Next, 17, sale by sample. Sale by sample. When the goods are sold by sample, there are three implied conditions here. Whenever goods are sold by sample, there are three implied conditions which must be taken care. What are those? In case of sale by sample. First one is very simple. Bulk shall correspond to the sample. The bulk should match with the sample. Bulk shall correspond with the sample in quality. Now to see whether the bulk is corresponding with the sample or not, buyer should be given a reasonable opportunity of comparing bulk with the sample. Buyer shall have reasonable opportunity of comparing bulk with sample. Buyer shall have reasonable opportunity of comparing bulk with sample. And see, goods shall be free from latent defect. Goods shall be free from latent defect. Latent defect means some defects which are visible to naked eyes. There should not be any latent defects. That means hidden defects. If there are any latent defects, if there are any hidden defects that is not visible to the naked eyes, then even if you have accepted the goods saying that this corresponds with the sample, the goods can be later on avoided or goods can be returned back. Even though the sample may have it, sample or bulk, both has that latent defect. Then also the buyer gets the chance to return back the goods because latent defects are something that is not visible for the naked eyes. So only if these three conditions are satisfied, sale by sample, condition as to sale by sample becomes valid. So you should observe this very important thing. All three conditions should form part of your answer. When they ask a question on this particular area, all these three conditions should form part of your answer. Very important. You cannot miss out on this. Yes. That is section 17 for us. Clear? Section 17, whether it is clear. So we discussed 12, 13. After that, we are discussing implied conditions and implied warranties, out of which we covered section 14, section 15, and section 17. Next, we'll go for section 16. Quality and fitness. When it comes to quality and fitness, you have to write the exact wordings given in ICA material. There are few important things to observe. Quality and fitness. So under quality and fitness, what are the things to be remembered? First and foremost thing, you should say that there is no implied condition. There is no implied condition as to quality and fitness. No implied condition as to quality and fitness. Buyer has to verify the goods to confirm if they match his requirements. But under three circumstances, there is implied condition as to quality and fitness. There are three conditions to be satisfied where we'll say there is implied condition as to quality and fitness. First one, buyer should have made known to the seller. Buyer should have made known to the seller purpose for which goods are required. Buyer should have made known to seller purpose for which goods are required. Second one, buyer should rely on skill and judgment of seller. Buyer should rely on skill and judgment of seller. And goods must be of description dealt in by the seller. In these three situations, seller is liable for quality and fitness. Where you are totally relying upon the seller. You are telling him the purpose and asking him to give a specific goods. Remember, where goods has only one purpose, first condition need not be complied. Where goods has only one purpose, the goods can be used for only one purpose, then first condition need not be satisfied. Even without the satisfaction of condition number one, it becomes valid to enter into such contract, and there exists condition as to quality and fitness. Even when purpose is not made known, where it happens only when goods has only one conditions or only one purpose of usage, where goods has only one purpose of usage. Yes. So that is section 16, subsection 1 for us. Having said that, seller cannot sell some random stuff saying that responsibility of buyer, quality and fitness is the responsibility of buyer. There should be something called as merchantability. So it becomes important duty of the seller to ensure that goods are of merchantable quality. When goods are bought by description from a seller, goods are bought by description from a seller. When goods are bought by a description from a seller, such goods shall be in merchantable quality. So this, whenever they ask a question like a bottle blasts in the hands of customer when he takes it for verifying, You should rely on these provisions. Merchantable quality simply means saleable quality. That means when a particular item comes to the hands of customer, it should not explode or it should not cause any harm to him. Or where you are buying a refrigerator, that minimum requirement, refrigerator is meant for cooling. If that cooling effect is not there, I'll say there is no merchantable quality. So that bare minimum quality, what is required in a particular goods, that must be there. That is what is called as merchantable quality. That is what we call as merchantable quality. Very important observation to be made. So sometimes questions ask about this. At that time, you should be relying upon the provisions of section 16, subsection 2. Sometimes they say buyer has set his purpose to the seller. Seller supplies the goods. The goods are not as per the requirement of the buyer. In that case, you can go for section 16, subsection 1, where there is no such mention, where they simply say that some goods come to the contact of the buyer and buyer suffers something. Now, you see, again, special conditions, if it is a special condition in the sense that her skin is allergic to some types of clothes. Such type of questions and all, if it comes, you have to rely to section 16, subsection 1 only. Otherwise, you can go for section 16, subsection 2, where it comes to bare minimum quality question, where the question is about the quality. You should go to section 16, subsection 2. So make sure that you identify the questions properly and then apply 16.1 and 16.2. See as many questions as possible from the ICE material where 16.1 and 16.2 are answered. Even this particular unit has so many questions behind it, if you see. So 16.1, 16.2, that plywood example is there. So even exhaust fan example is there. You should make sure that you are very clear about which provision and then apply the provision. First decide it. 16.1 or 16.2. And last one, when it is edible items, consumable items, groceries, you should also go for the third one. 16 has one more part, that is condition as to wholesomeness. Wholesomeness comes only for edible items. It should be fit for human consumption. Wholesome means it should be fit for human consumption. So that is condition as to wholesomeness. This is for edible items only. Or groceries. Applicable for groceries. So these are the important areas to be kept in mind when it comes to section 16. These are all the implied conditions. 7 different implied conditions. Condition as to title, condition as to sale by description, condition as to sale by sample, condition as to sale by sample as well as description, condition as to quality and fitness, merchantable quality and fitness, and last one is condition as to wholesomeness. Then comes implied warranties. Under implied warranties, we have 14B and 14C, which tells us about free from encumbrance and undisturbed possession. Warranty as to undisturbed or quiet possession. 14B, warranty as to quiet possession, or what we'll use the ICA material wordings only. It says undisturbed possession. Breach of warranty. What is the solution in case of breach of warranty, sir? Whenever there is a breach of warranty, what is the solution? What remedy is available for the person? For breach of warranty? Breach of warranty, very nice. Breach of warranty gives rise to damages. Breach of warranty gives rise to damages. So whenever the possession is disturbed, whenever a person's possession is disturbed due to seller's lack of title, seller was not the owner of the goods, because of which buyer cannot enjoy the goods. One thing we already discussed. What is that? Buyer can put an end to the contract and he can ask the money back. Let us say if he has done something to the goods. Even that is the money he is losing out. No? So that is when this particular damages part will come. Whatever he has lost, correct, damages, whatever he has lost with an intention of enjoying the goods, he can recover it from the seller. Under this particular heading, that is warranty as to undisturbed possession. When the possession is disturbed, possession is disturbed, damages can be claimed. Nice. Next one, warranty as to undisturbed possession is over. 14C, warranty as to free from encumbrance. Free from encumbrance. Encumbrance means non-existence of loan or charge. No one, when he buys the goods, believes that or thinks that this particular goods has a loan on it. Now, if the seller is not informing the buyer, and buyer later on gets to know that there is a loan on this particular goods, then buyer can not end the contract, but he can claim the damages. Whatever the amount of loan he is supposed to pay, he is compelled to pay, he can recover it from the seller as damages. That is freedom from encumbrance. Goods shall be free from encumbrance. Then warranty as to quality or fitness by usage of trade. Usage of trade. Warranty as to quality or fitness by usage of trade. Sir, if there is any customary practice in a particular business, that for quality and fitness, we can claim damages. Whenever the goods are not of particular quality, you can claim damages. In such a case, when the goods doesn't correspond to the acceptable quality, when the goods doesn't correspond with the acceptable quality, the buyer gets the right to claim damages. Earlier, when we said condition as to quality and fitness, we said the goods can be rejected. But here, there is no question. Where it is usage, we cannot reject the goods. Rather, what we can do is, we can ask the damages from the seller. We can claim the damages from the seller. And last one is disclosure of dangerous nature. We don't have a section for it. It is a simple direct provision, disclosure of dangerous nature. If dangerous nature of the goods is not disclosed and buyer sustains to some loss, buyer suffers injury, in that case, it becomes the duty of the seller to compensate the buyer. It becomes the duty of the seller to compensate the buyer. This is with respect to dangerous nature of the goods. So with this, we conclude important part on conditions and warranties. Now, compiling all these things, we have one single concept called as doctrine of caveat emptor. If caveat emptor is asked, normally it will be a straightforward theory question. So I'll simply write it as caveat emptor. You should make sure that you have covered all the points that are there in the ICI material while answering the question. It should be a straightforward theory question. Caveat emptor will be a straightaway theory question. So whatever is there in the ICI material, same thing that we have been explaining for other things. That is quality and fitness, mercantile quality and all those things. We have respective side headings. You have to focus on those side headings and give the descriptions properly. So that is the thing with respect to caveat emptor. We don't have anything much to revise there. It is because purely based on section 16. It is a derivation from section 16 of the Sale of Goods Act. So better to stick on to ICA material with respect to caveat emptor. Yes. So that brings us to the end of unit number 2 of Sale of Goods Act. Unit 1 over, unit 2 over. Next, we need to see unit number 3. Unit number 3 has two parts. Unit number 3 has two parts. Part 1, it speaks about transfer of ownership. When will the ownership gets transferred in various circumstances? And it also speaks about delivery of goods. What are the rules regarding delivery? So first we'll see the first part of that is rules regarding transfer of ownership. We can expect some practical questions there. Very important area. You should be very clear also while answering the question. Section 18, what does it say? Section 18 says, unless you ascertain the goods, you cannot transfer the ownership. So unless you ascertain the goods, ownership cannot be transferred in a particular goods. That is what section 18 says. Very important thing. For a property to be transferred, identification of goods is important. Correct? So 18 simply says property in the goods cannot pass to buyer. Property in the goods cannot pass to buyer unless and until goods are ascertained. Unless and until goods are ascertained, the property in the goods cannot pass on to the buyer. See, this point also becomes important when you answer the provisions of section 23. Because in section 23, we are speaking about transfer of ownership in case of unascertained goods. So first and foremost thing is goods must be ascertained. That is said in section 18. So section 18 is important. It simply says, unless the goods are ascertained, ownership will not transfer. This is section 18 for us. Section 19 simply says, ownership normally gets transferred based on the intention of the parties. How to determine the intention? You should go to the terms of the contract. You should go with the conduct of the parties or circumstance of the cases. Further, section 20 onwards, the act itself gives us some general rules with respect to transfer of ownership. General rules. So section 20 tells us about specific goods in deliverable state. When will the ownership transfer? Specific goods in deliverable state. When will the ownership transfer in case of specific goods in deliverable state? That means goods are ready. You are going and enter into an agreement. Very simple. The moment you enter into an agreement, the moment agreement is done, the ownership transfers. When contract is made. In this case, when contract is made, ownership transfers. So we are not bothered about the payment. We are not bothered about the delivery. Ownership gets transferred the moment contract is entered. The moment contract is entered. Specific goods deliverable state. That means seller has no duty to do anything for it. Ownership will transfer immediately when contract is entered. 21. Specific goods to be put into deliverable state. That means seller has to do something to put the goods into deliverable state. You might have purchased a laptop. Software installation is pending. You might purchase a two-wheeler. The guard fittings and other things are pending. Maybe you have purchased some goods. Packing is pending. That means seller has to do something. And only then he can give the goods. That means deliverable state. Goods are not in deliverable state. In that case, when seller puts them into deliverable state, and When seller puts it into deliverable state and buyer has a notice. Buyer has a notice. When seller puts it into deliverable state and buyer has notice of the same. Bringing it to the notice of the buyer is important. Next one, specific goods in deliverable state, but seller has to do something to ascertain the price. He doesn't know what is the price. So to ascertain the price, seller has to do something. I have repeated section 21 twice. Same thing here. Already discussed. 22, specific goods. Deliverable state. Price to be determined. Price to be ascertained. Ascertained. Price is not yet ascertained. Price is yet to be ascertained. Now in this case, when will the ownership transfer? When seller does any act to ascertain price. It may be weighing, it may be packing, it may be testing, it may be measuring or something to ascertain the price, and buyer has notice of it. And buyer has notice of it. That means it is brought to the notice of the buyer. In this case, ownership is said to be transferred. Ownership is said to be transferred. Why are we seeing when is the ownership getting transferred? Because risk prima facie transfers with ownership. Whosoever has the ownership, he has the risk of the goods. That means if goods are lost, he will be liable for it. Now, section 23 is important. Unascertained goods case. Section 18 has already said that unless the goods are ascertained, the ownership will not transfer. So how will the ownership transfer in case of unascertained goods? So what do they say? First one is ascertaining the goods. Ascertain the goods. Plus second one, appropriate the goods. By buyer with consent of seller or by seller with consent of buyer. Appropriation of goods. Appropriation means application of goods for the purpose of performance of contract. Normally the case laws that they ask here, normally the case-based questions they ask here. A person purchases certain quantity of goods. Goods are unascertained. He sends his man with bags for getting the goods. Now seller separates, like say 100 goods are ordered. Seller separates 50 and packs it in the bag. Remaining 50 is yet to be packed. There is a fire. And all the goods, including these 50 goods, are lost. Who shall bear the loss? Normally, these type of questions are to be answered using assumptions. So you should write both the assumptions here. While writing the assumptions, you will say, if the goods are separated with the consent of men sent by the buyer, buyer shall bear the loss for 50 goods. If the goods are appropriated without the consent by seller on his own, then buyer shall not bear the loss. Only seller will bear the loss of entire lot. I hope you know this particular question. You might have come across this type of questions. Correct? So where in this type of questions are there, you should understand that the answering should be based on assumptions. You should make both the assumptions there. Understanding, very important. Can be a possible question here. Yes, my dears. I hope it is clear to you. So further improvising this particular provision, they'll also ask a question saying that when the goods are delivered to the carrier, or if it is given to some bailee for the purpose of transporting it to the buyer, will the ownership get transferred? See, it is considered as unconditional appropriation. When will you consider it as unconditional appropriation? When the seller does not reserve the right of disposal. That means when seller is not putting any condition, seller is not saying that only if this condition is satisfied, ownership will transfer. Unconditionally, when he is giving the goods to the transporter, unconditionally when he is giving the goods to the bailer, it is called as unconditional appropriation. And where there is an unconditional appropriation, the ownership is said to be transferred. Conditions are very important. Please make sure that you go through thoroughly the conditions under section 23. Very, very important. First thing is goods must be ascertained. Unascertained goods, big bulk. Out of that, some parts are to be separated. Separation is not just the criteria. Not only separation is criteria. One more criteria is there. The other criteria is it must be appropriated. Unconditional appropriation is mandatory. Unconditional appropriation means what? Application of goods. How should you unconditionally appropriate? Either by the seller with the consent of buyer or buyer with the consent of seller. Packing the goods in some bags with the consent of buyer will transfer the ownership. So very, very important. That is section 23 for us. Can be a possible area of question here. Then comes section 24. Concept which is there in your accounts also and which comes here also. Section 24. Goods sent on approval basis. When will the ownership transfer in case of goods sent on approval basis? Here they put us conditions. If any of the condition is met, there are three situations. If any of the situation under those three situations are met, the ownership is said to be transferred. Sale or return basis. That means you're sending the goods first to the buyer. Then buyer has an option. Buyer has an option whether to select the goods or to reject the goods. In that case, when will the ownership gets transferred? Rules we have to see. So first one, when buyer signifies approval, when buyer signifies his approval or acceptance, that is considered as transfer of ownership. Or retaining goods without notice of rejection. Retaining goods without notice of rejection after expiration of time. Even after the time is lapsed, if he retains the goods without returning it, now time, it may be fixed by the contract, it may be reasonable time. If it is fixed, we will go with the fixed time. Otherwise, it is reasonable time. After expiration of time, if the goods are not returned, then also it is considered as approved. Goods are approved. Third one, doing something to the goods. Which is equivalent to accepting it. Doing something to the goods which is equivalent to accepting it. Gifting it to someone, pledging the goods, selling the goods, all these things are equivalent to accepting the goods. There can be a possible question here also. Sometimes they ask a question here. So important area. So up to section 24, these are the important areas under Sale of Goods Act. After which we have certain things under section 27 onwards, transfer of title by non-owners. And then we have a concept called as delivery of goods, that is performance of contract of sale under this unit. And last unit we have is unpaid seller. So let us quickly see what are the provisions we have seen in Sale of Goods Act now. So topic wise, we'll see once. First topic was definition of contract of sale. Second topic we covered was definition of goods. Third topic we saw was sale versus hire purchase. Fourth topic was ascertainment of price and sale of goods at valuation. Fifth topic we saw was condition versus warranty, difference between condition and warranty. Sixth one, situation where breach of condition is to be treated as breach of warranty. Seventh one, various implied conditions. Eighth one, various implied warranties. Ninth one is with respect to transfer of ownership under various circumstances. Four different circumstances are there. Five different circumstances are there. Which are they? Specific goods in deliverable state, specific goods to be put into deliverable state, specific goods which are in deliverable state, but some act is required for putting it into, for determining the price of the goods. After that, what we have is unascertained goods, transfer of ownership in case of unascertained goods, transfer of ownership in case of goods sent on written or approval basis. So these are the topics we covered till now. There are few more topics to be covered, probably which we can see in the tomorrow's session. In tomorrow's session, we will complete this transfer of ownership by non-owners, and we'll also see the provisions relating to delivery of goods and then unpaid seller. And based on the timings, we can also start with Partnership Act tomorrow, from some basic discussion on Partnership Act. Right? So I hope it is very clear to us. Since we are recalling the things, I don't want to stress out a lot. So whatever is there, we'll go in a very paced manner. We have enough hours for discussion. So we'll go it in a very paced manner. I hope things are very clear to us, everybody. Whatever we have discussed till section 24 of Sale of Goods Act, things are very clear. Please make sure that you recall all these things again today, so that the entire session what we have taken becomes effective. Is it clear, everybody? Please give me a confirmation. Yes, sir. I have got only one confirmation. No other people are there. Yes. Okay, sir. Nice one. So we'll end the session today. As far as our subject is concerned, we'll be meeting back tomorrow again, and we'll be discussing few more things. So enjoy your marathon sessions. Keep revising. Keep preparing. Hope to see you back soon in the tomorrow's session. Yes. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.